All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jody Freed, as you know, from Love Adventure Mom. And thank you so much for joining us on our masterclass series, Small Outing to Big Adventure, How to Embrace and Include the Kids. So I am thrilled to be here this morning with Sarah Centrella. And she is a best-selling author. She's a speaker and just has so much knowledge and wisdom to share with us. So, Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you for a minute just to talk about yourself. Give us a brief introduction, and then we'll jump into some questions about, adventure and what you have to share with these mamas.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for having me on, Jody. It's so great to be here. Great to meet your audience. And trust and believe, I understand the whole mom situation. I'm a single mom, have been for 10 years. And I have identical twin daughters that are 11, and my son is a sophomore in high school. But to give you kind of a little bit of background on me, and for your listeners, if they don't kind of know my story, it all started about 10 years ago when my husband at the time, and my high school sweetheart, had come home one day, and I discovered he had been having an affair. And it was just out of the blue, happened, during our big recession. So there was just a lot of things that were already not going well in our life and in the world in general. It was a really difficult time. And so to put that kind of on top of everything, it just ended like everything I had planned for my whole entire life in 5 minutes. Like, our marriage was over instantaneously. I think I filed for divorce like 3 days later. It was just a complete and wrecking ball to my life. And at that point, my twins were a year. They were just a little over a year old, and my son was 5.5. And I'd been a stay-at-home mom, so I had no income coming in. It had never crossed my mind that this could ever be a remote possibility in my life. And so I think, and back then we didn't have social media, so we didn't have, bigger support systems than the people we physically knew, and so going through that and just trying to initially just survive and just, take care of my kids and find a place to live and, all of that kind of immediate stuff was the goal. But then it really kind of shifted pretty quickly into, well, I don't want to just survive. And now I have to figure out, even though the way I was going to be a mom is so different than what I had anticipated, right? I still want to be an amazing mom. My whole life, that was one of the things I wanted most in the world, like I would eat my children if I could. I'm obsessed with them, obsessed. And I was not willing to let that be sacrificed just because of everything that I was going through at the time.
Wow.
And, even though I had to start working full time and all of that, I've always been put them 1,000% first. So it has definitely been a focus on building the career, which, by the way, is this now.
Okay.
And back then it was in corporate. But then the other thing has always been them. So I've been very kind of protective of our relationship and of our family and of our time that we spend together. And I think a lot of single moms especially really struggle with that and tend to not do that. They go the other way. And I was unwilling to do that. And I'm so glad because, we're so close and we've done some really amazing things together.
Wow, that's amazing. And you've really shaped your future at that point. I mean,
absolutely. Instead of taking what life gives you and just feeling helpless and hopeless in that situation, there's so many tools out there for women and for anybody who wants to learn them, how you can guide it, how you can predict it, how you can literally invent it. I've reinvented myself completely. I'm not the same human being I was then, like not even recognizably the same human being. So, but I had to first decide kind of who I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that was totally made up in my mind, that's where it has to start sometimes. And then you can kind of fill in the blanks and get there. And now I'm living that.
Oh, good for you. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. What does that mean to you to now be living? And what does Mensch Adventure mean to you as a mom of teens and preteens?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's been such a big kind of part of how I parent, even back then. So, back when I was carrying two babies, one on each hip everywhere I went because they were, still so small and like learning to walk and whatever. And life was super chaotic and I had no money. I remember on the weekends, because those were our days together, right? Because I wasn't at work and they weren't at daycare. I was like, they're going to have memories. I'm making memories with them every single weekend. I don't care if I'm exhausted or whatever. And so I would pack them in the car and I would drive 2 hours to our beach to just spend 45 minutes there, really, and get totally filthy and get sand and everything and whatever. But I was like, I don't care. Like, they're going to have these memories growing up. And so I've always been super committed to that, regardless of kind of what I was going through or how busy life gets, or if financially it was or wasn't difficult, whatever. And then over the last couple of years, it's really transitioned to my personal passion with it, which is travel. I'm super passionate about international travel. And so I started taking the kids on trips. When my son was 7, we did our first. And then when I could finally afford to take all of us, we did that. So it's been in kind of stages. It wasn't all at once. But our first international trip was in 2016 when I took them for 3 weeks to Italy. And that was life-changing. And then last year in May, so almost a year ago, we did London, Ireland, and Scotland. And they planned those trips.
How did they plan the trips? Did you get some guidance? How did that look?
Yeah, so for Italy, I'm a huge Pinterest.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
So I actually use Pinterest for its visuals. So for me, it's just the biggest like search engine of gorgeous pictures on the planet. I don't really use it for all the DIY stuff. Okay. So, and I've kind of raised them to do the same. They all have the app on their phone. And so back in 2016, my twins were only 9. But, I love Italy. They've been watching stuff about Italy their entire life. And so I was like, okay, we're going to go to 3 regions. That's 1 region apiece. Each of you go on Pinterest and find out what you do in Tuscany. Like what comes up when you like Google Tuscany? What do you do in Rome? And so it was really great because there was kind of a couple parts to the assignment that if moms travel with their kids at all, I mean, this was gold and I've repeated it since. But so I once I told them we were going, right, and got the flights and stuff, I was like, this is super exciting. Each of you get a region, you get to plan, you get to go on Pinterest and find the cool things we want to do. And then I also want you to go on Google and write down the top tourist things. Like, what do people usually do when they go to Rome, let's say, or Venice? And so they took it very seriously. It was a little competitive, right? And then, I put some money on the table. I was like, $100, whoever finishes their assignment first. And then I did other little things like we all downloaded Duolingo and we all were learning Italian.
Yeah.
And so whoever got the farthest in the app won $100. And that was their spending money. So they were the whole time getting excited for their own reasons for the trip. Okay. And I know I've talked to a lot of parents who are like dragging their kids places, So by the time we got there, it was, number one, just so amazing because we wound up doing a lot of things that I probably would not have known about or done. Wow. A perfect example is my daughter Mira found these mineral baths in Tuscany and she was obsessed with them, and they're literally the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But it's in the middle of nowhere. When we got there, I was like, that's a 4-hour drive in the middle of nowhere, like not near town, nothing. And she was like, you told me if I planned it, I could go. Oh. So we wound up going, and it was the most magical day of the whole trip. And so I just think I think a lot of times parents are afraid to kind of empower their kids in a way. Or follow through if they've given them that empowerment. That's a big deal. I did promise her, so I couldn't then become the planner of the trip once we showed up, right? I had to continue to give them that power. And I mean, what it did for her confidence to have the whole family have an amazing time at something that was her idea, so it just has so many benefits. But yeah, and then they used their Italian when we were there and stuff like that. So as far as adventure goes, it's so core to kind of everything I believe as a mom. We only get 18 years with our kids.
Right.
And those first 10 feel like 40.
I'm in that
And
right now.
9 out of 10 days, you're exhausted and annoyed and just are like, how is this my life right now? And then that one, you're like, oh God, it went by really fast and I was an asshole, like. So
Oh,
I've tried to always try as best I can to keep it in perspective and to realize that from the time you bring them home from the hospital, the clock ticks and you got
right.
18 years and that's it.
That is so true. We
Fill
have
it
to
up.
make the best of every moment. But I absolutely love what you said, because I actually hear a lot from parents that that a huge reason why they don't take their kids on trips, road trips, international travel, whatever, is because their kids just complain the whole time. And I think empowering our children are smart, and we
Yes.
can learn so much from them, and just giving them a little bit of empowerment
Yes.
and guidance,
Oh
with
my God. It literally changed everything. And the cool thing about it, if you have multiple kids and break up sections the way that we did, rather than me just saying each of you get to plan one thing that we do over a 3-week period of time, I would have probably been having to pull them the rest of the time, right?
uh,
But since each of them had a region and we were in each region for 5 days,
uh,
they had their own little travel planner. Each day was planned, and they had some backups for each day or whatever, so that every day they woke up excited. Every day. And then it was really cool because they had seen the pictures online, and then to be in a space in real life that you had seen. And that's huge. If anyone is out there trying to take their kids on their first international trip, it's hard because as an adult, our mindset thinks Italy and we're like, oh, beautiful, right? A 9-year-old gets there and they're like, this shit is old. Like, why are all the buildings not painted? Like, why is there no food that I recognize? You know what I mean? But if you can expose them to that long in advance, and we watched tons of movies about Italy, and every time we did, I pointed out these things. This is where we're going to go. So when they were there, they were like, yeah, like, of course. This is what I was expecting. And the other cool part is, like, when one kid was done with their kind of time, then it was a whole new excitement to go into the next kind of piece of the journey, because it was the other kids' turn to step up. And I kind of took it a little bit farther last year in May. My daughter's one had been wanting to go to London, just like bugging me. And then the other one was Ireland. And I was like, okay. And I try to do a big trip each year. So last year I was like, it's up to you guys. Where do you want to go? And it was London, Ireland. I was like, we can do that in one trip. Okay, cool. And then we added Scotland for my son. And so I had them do the same things. They planned kind of everything that we did in each of the regions. But I told my daughter, I was like, go look up Ireland, see what we do. What are we going to do there? And she's like, well, there's Guinness and there's Jameson. There's all these. And I was like, or there's sheep and there's green hills. We still going there? She was like, yep. I'm like, okay, let's go. So, and it, of course, wound up just being such a magical experience. And she was sneaky, though. She had us drive to Galway on one of our days, and we get there, and it was Ed Sheeran Fest. And I was like, so that's why you took me to Ireland?
Oh my goodness.
So, they'll always surprise you a little bit.
Yeah, you have to be prepared for that.
But now she's the kid that can say, I was in Ireland when Ed Sheeran was there on Ed Sheeran Fest. Like.
Funny. Oh my goodness. That is crazy. And the other thing that I love about what you mentioned is that your kids were earning their spending money while
Yes.
planning the trip. And that's awesome, because something else that comes up a lot for moms is, how do I control my kids' urges to spend? Like, they don't know about budgeting the same way that we might be, attuned to it and do it in our adulting.
Oh my God, teach them young. I mean, my kids have had chores, and I was raised with chores too, so it didn't seem odd to me at all. But, I have videos of my 3-year-olds unloading the dishwasher and putting the dishes away. And they loved it. They were like, oh, and they would get their $2 back then. And now they're like, I want $10 for unloading the dishwasher. But no, so we've always had the rule. I've always given them opportunity to earn. So that's the other big thing. So if you're going to implement something where you're teaching them about budget and empowering them, you have to obviously give them an opportunity to learn. Or to earn. And so from a very young age, I was like, I take care of 99.99% of stuff. But if there's, just one thing you want, if you want a new case for your phone or something, that's you. Like that comes out of your budget.
Yeah.
And so what's great about that is if they come up with something like they wanted a Polaroid camera or something like that,
Sure.
And I was like, cool, how many chores do you got to do? Like, what do you need to do to earn that? If it's $40, come to me and I'll write a list of chores and I'll give a price for each one. And you pick what you want to do and add it all up until you get your money. And so we've been doing that their entire life. And my son, we just went and opened his first checking account. And so, he was so aware of kind of how all that stuff worked. He got his first job and he's earning and stuff. So don't wait till they're 16 though, to bring that in, know, and especially for a trip, give them stuff that's trip related for them to earn money because it helps get them excited. And then, so, when we went to Italy for 3 weeks, they had each earned like maybe $250. They literally took that with them. We did the exchange. They got their euros. They learned how to pay in euros and all that kind of stuff. And when that money was gone, that money was gone.
Right.
You knew to budget it over the 3 weeks so that they could get their little trinkets here and there. And same with last year. So absolutely take that pressure off yourself, man.
Yeah, completely.
There is no conversation like, Mom, can I get this? Can I get this? It's like, they know what they can get.
Your budget. Yeah, totally.
They know how much money they have left.
I love it. So we've been talking about some, things that are great ideas and that have been going great. Tell me a little bit about the challenges that you face. And maybe, these are more relevant when your kids were younger. I don't know. But what are some of the challenges that you faced in trying to, go on and with your kids?
Oh, my God. Well, I'm a full-time single mom working. And 2 years ago, I left corporate and started my own business. So I could be here all day and talk about the challenges. Like there is no end to the challenges. And I think that's a really great question. And I can only kind of speak now for what it's like as a single mom, obviously, because it's been so long that I've been in that role. But I think this might help your audience as well. Women in general, I think a lot of times we get so stuck in our little world, right? And we feel so overwhelmed in what's going on. And so, there's a lot of, how do I do this, right? At least for me, that's, and I think that's pretty common. But just basic things, like when you're doing it by yourself, when the kids were little and one would wake up in the middle of the night with an earache and it'd be pouring down rain and it's 2:00 in the morning, I'm getting 3 kids in the car, waking them all up out of bed. Yeah. Just to drive across the street and get some Tylenol to come back in the pouring rain and put them back to bed. So it's like and that is all day, every day. And it's definitely a lot easier now that they are older. But I think if we can do it in those type of circumstances, there really is nothing that we can't do. You know what I mean? And so in the worst possible circumstances, we can still kind of find joy when our kid makes us laugh, like actually laugh out loud when they do that. Yeah. How many times do we stifle it instead? Or just give a little smile? Just freaking laugh. Yeah. Laugh and scoop them up. I love it. Take a moment and just be like, I want to remember this. I'm going to take a little mental picture. And so when they were little, it was every day was a challenge. I mean, I would be in the bathroom and I would come out and they would be painting my couch with red lipstick because it looked really pretty. Or, painting it with hummus because the couch loved hummus as much as they did. It's just stuff like that. It was like, so as a mom, I think our biggest challenge is to react in a way that doesn't crush their little 2-year-old spirit when they weren't doing something in a malicious way. Right. It's up to us to check ourselves in a moment like that and to take a breath, because a lot of times we want to do that, and just being aware that all of those kind of interactions added up shape our child for life, So I think having grown up in a really negative environment, I've always been hyper aware of what I say to them truly matters. It's shaping how they believe about themselves. So if I say, you're so messy, they're going to grow up and think they're a messy person and that's something they can't change. And so just kind of having that awareness has been huge for me and has really helped shape who they are, I think. So. Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. I could go on talking to you forever, but I don't want to take too much more time. So I'd love to just talk a little bit about what's,
what's next for you. I see those vision boards in the background, and I know you have a new book coming out, and a new course, I think an online course. So do you want to tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, absolutely. So big way that I changed my life and kind of went from that poverty state to being able to travel internationally with my kids and be an author and kind of start my own business and all of that. I really attribute it to, my boards and the way that I kind of do them, which is totally different than how anyone else does them, and how I use them to predict my future and create my future. And I've been teaching it to my children. They all have their own boards. They've been manifesting from them since they were like 5 years old. And over the last 7 or 8 years, I've been training people how to do it around the world. And it's just been truly incredible. So my new book is called Future Boards, #Future Boards.
Okay.
And it's with Simon & Schuster. So I'm super excited. It comes out in July. And it will teach you how to do this, how to make them, how to literally create a life that you can't even probably fathom listening to this today.
And you have literally seen your life change.
Oh my God.
Vision
like,
board.
My boards just come to life. That's just what they do.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I think on Pinterest, I have a board that's called My Reality Board, and it has a ton of side-by-sides. But I think I've gone through and counted off my last 7 or 8 boards, and there's like 290 experiences that have come to life that I've lived that started out as an idea.
Wow.
And wound up on my board. Yeah. So it's insane. It's life freaking changing. It's
That's
really
incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what I wanted to offer to your listeners is a chapter from the new book that will really kind of talk about that. There's a lot that goes into the board. It's not just about like ripping pictures out of a magazine. I don't do that at all, actually. But a big piece of it before you even get to the place where you're putting a physical picture is your mindset, right? Like you got to be able to see it in your mind first. You got to know how to control what you're thinking, how to change negative, behaviors in your mind. And so that chapter, I think, is just such a pivotal one. It can be life-changing for anybody. And so I definitely want to offer that to your listeners.
That's awesome. Thank you. And so all of you who are out there watching this are going to get that chapter of Sarah's book for free. So we'll post a link at the bottom of this video where you can sign up to get your free chapter of her book. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with me today. Really appreciate it. And I think you've given incredible value. Is there any, one last tip or tidbit that you want to share?
I would just say it doesn't matter what your situation is right now. If you want to do something amazing with your kids, if you have a dream, like if any of the travel stuff that I talked about resonated with you, or if you want to take your kids to Disneyland or whatever, just do it. Just plan it. I am not a wealthy person. I don't do this just because I'm wealthy and I can, no problem. Every trip that I've ever taken, I've planned out, I've budgeted for. Thank God for Airbnb. It gives us a lot more options than we had before, So, and if anyone wants to know any of those tips, I have an Instagram called Single Mom Globetrotter. And it's all of our photography from our trips and has a lot of kind of tips on how I hack the system to do it. But listen, you're never going to get this time back. And if you want to build memories like that with your kids, there's absolutely a way, and you can find a way no matter what your situation is.
Right. Totally. Thank you so much.
It was great to talk to you. Thanks so much, Jody.
You as well. Bye.